Welcome to Scorched Earth and a general reading for the sign of Capricorn, Sun, Moon or Ascendant for the month of May 2024. I hope you are well. I'm using the Tarot of the Abyss for you today. Before we get started, if the reading resonates with you and you'd like to go a little bit deeper, there will be an extended that you can access at the end. That's the first link in the description box. Link number 2 and number 3 are to my private community, the Order of the Phoenix, over on the Circle platform, and the 3-month overviews that I did for each of the signs respectively. So if any of that sounds like it might be of interest to you, you know what to do with it. Right, let's get stuck straight in, Capricorn. Can I have 3 cards for Capricorn, please? There we go. There's the first card. We have the 5 of Cups in your recent past. Current energy, please, for Capricorn. We have 5 of Pentacles. And what's coming towards Capricorn for May. Thank you. We have the Ace of Wands. I like this, actually, and I'm sorry to say that because that's quite... these cards here are quite stark and uncomfortable, but you could not really have had a better card come out for what's coming towards you for May than the Ace of Wands. And it puts this into context. It says, you are not suffering for the sake of suffering. There's something here very, very meaningful that you are being asked to recognize and then break out of, right? So that you can initiate something new. Now, that's the kind of broad skim over the top of it. And obviously we're going to be going much deeper into it than that. But we have the 7 of Cups at the bottom of the deck here. Now, this traditionally is associated with confusion, perhaps even states of illusion. It speaks to times where we have our head in the clouds and we're perhaps not facing head-on issues that we have. But it can also speak to all manner of kind of emotional complexity of the sort that can take a little bit of unpicking. You know, there's instability here, emotionally speaking. There's instability here from a resource position, potentially, which would be very important to Capricorns, but also in terms of where your energy and attention is going, right? And both of these cards together are speaking to a level of discomfort that is forcing us to move. You know, humans are incredibly pain avoidant creatures, and let's face it, you know, in a toss-up between staying somewhere that you're comfortable and being courageous enough to take the break into something else, generally it's discomfort that forces us to do that. It's why would we move if we're comfortable where we are? If everything's just working, everything's going swimmingly, why would we change it? If it ain't broke, don't fix it, and all that kind of thing, right? But what this is saying is there are quite a few things that have been broken, and what's been missing is your awareness that things could be so much better than they have been, Capricorn. And to be fair, some of you may well have been quite aware that things could be better. But if this emotional complexity or emotional confusion, or even just a slight break from reality are at play. And by slight break from reality, I mean this assumption that life is just the grind, you know, that we're just here to suffer, we're here to just keep ploughing on no matter what. And so no matter how difficult things get, we just keep our head down and we just keep moving forwards. I mean, sometimes there are periods in life where that's true, but there are other times where we're being almost, or we're kind of marching ourselves into a corner. And when we hit that brick wall, we recognize that actually perhaps we could go a different way. And maybe it doesn't always have to be about the grind. Maybe there's something more out there for all of us. So let's just get some clarifiers out on the table and we'll get stuck into this. Tell me about the 5 of Cups, please. What's that here for Capricorn? We have the High Priestess, Pisces for me, and we have the 3 of Cups. Tell me about the 5 of Pentacles, please. Ooh. We have the Hanged Man, more Pisces energy, interesting. We have the Justice card falling sideways and the 4 of Wands in reverse. And tell me about the Ace of Wands, please. Well, all right, let's keep it like that. The Magician, and the Nine of Swords also falling sideways. You've also got the Seven of Cups appearing again at the bottom of the deck. So it's doubling down on the message, right? There's lots going on here, and it's probably incredibly complex. But at the same time, maybe you are making it more complicated than it needs to be. It's quite funny. I was talking to a friend of mine this morning, and just sort of, just to check in, how are things going and all that kind of thing. And, I've got some big things ahead of me that I'm kind of dealing with in my real life right now. And I said, it's funny, I've been kind of waiting for this moment for quite a long time. And then it sort of arrived. And then I sort of stood around for a little bit, almost waiting for some sort of big sign or the universe very clearly giving me permission to now strike out and do these things, and I wasn't really doing it. I suddenly realised the only person who was going to give me permission to do it was me, and then suddenly things started moving, Anyway, in your recent past, and by recent past I mean, we're talking broadly the last month, could be 6 weeks, could be 2 weeks, could be this morning. We have the Five of Cups, and that is a very difficult energy, as I said at the start, because it deals with feelings of restriction, or being stuck, rather. We have 3 cups that are spilled here. And the cups are simply the vessels that hold water in the tarot, and it is water that is the emotion, not the cups. So we have, the water spilled out and flowing everywhere. And this character in the card, obviously in a state of misery and grief, is all kind of curled up on themselves. And they're completely oblivious to these 2 cups that are sitting either side. Right, so tarot readers will tell you things like, you're crying over spilt milk, or, any of these sorts of things. But this card fundamentally, for me, associates with grief, sometimes bitterness and resentment, ultimately a state of loss, feeling like one has truly lost something that can never really be returned to us in any kind of meaningful way. Now, that interpretation only really carries weight when we are oblivious to the 2 cups that remain. And the essence of this card is saying that, yeah, things aren't great, and yes, you have lost something, but the tools with which you can acquire more different versions of what it is that you've lost still remain. All 5 cups are still there. Yes, 3 have fallen over, but all 5 still remain, and they can be refilled. Whenever we have a card that is numbered 5, it speaks to an instability of some description, right? 4s are about creating foundations. 5s are quite often about upending those, not to torture you, not to make your life difficult, but in fact to help you improve the situation that you have. It's a card of growth, but it's usually very uncomfortable, as it is across all of the 5s. So we have it here clarified by the High Priestess and the 3 of Cups. Now, the High Priestess, like I said, is Piscean energy. She also speaks to intuition. She speaks to an internal knowing. And the one thing that I want to say about these 3 cards here together, which isn't necessarily signposted by the cards, but it's a feeling that I've got here, is the fact that you sort of always knew it was going to come to this point. And I don't really know where that's coming from. Whether or not it was something that you consciously acknowledged within yourself, or it was one of those knowings that we don't really want to acknowledge. And I don't want to think about that. That's not a thing. That's not going to happen. And the problem is with that is that when we push those feelings down and we don't acknowledge them, what we tend to do is overcompensate on the other side. So, if we've got this feeling like there's a certain dread inevitability about what's going on, but we don't accept it. Now we start fighting tooth and nail to keep the thing, right? And it makes the loss of it feel almost more brutal than it would have been if we had kind of gone with the flow of the situation. Now, the 3 of Cups for me is a card that speaks about emotional support networks. And it's great that it's in the upright, but I do feel like you, Capricorn, feel rather isolated from your emotional support networks. I mean, it could well be that some of you have been looking around and going, well, what is a support network for me? Do I have a functional support network around me? Am I a part of a functional support network for someone else? The High Priestess often is a rather isolated archetype, right? She stands apart from everyone else because she's almost like a silent witness to things. And because so much of it is internal with us here, whatever the High Priestess is representing is such an internal state, then what we've got is you potentially feeling very lonely in a crowd full of people. Maybe going, oh yeah, I've got loads of people that I know, but there are none of them that I would really emotionally lean on. And, leaning on people emotionally is not something that comes easily or naturally to Capricorn placements, whether you're Sun, particularly if you're a Moon, I would say even particularly if you're a Capricorn rising. All three of those tend to be very, very private and just deal. I mean, Saturn here being an influence on your chart is, like I was saying right at the beginning, like everything is a grind. You just got to keep going and keep going and keep going and keep going. And there's very little in the way of kind of stepping back and being circumspect about things, or, sitting on your laurels, or just letting things flow. This is not about letting things flow to the Capricorn mind. But this dread inevitability that I was talking about, where things, possibly in retrospect, you could see that things were always going to go the way that they went. The question that we ask ourselves then is, why did we fight it so hard? If it was always going to go that way, and, the overcompensating and fighting for something tooth and nail is going to lead to a point where we're like, well, fuck, I put in all of this effort and I lost it anyway. I said, like, the bit of you that has been the High Priestess, why was she not allowed to have a louder voice? Why did you not choose to listen to what it was that she was saying? I feel like this is where the confusion's coming in here. This is, like I said, I don't feel like a lot of you have acknowledged what you didn't want to see. You've, in fact, fought it pretty hard. It got squashed down within you as something that you would not accept. And all of the confusion that's coming up, all of the complexity that we were talking about here, feels to me like it's a natural corollary of preventing the High Priestess in her role as an emotionally processing agent, or connection to the universe, connection to your guides, your higher self, or whatever. Preventing her from coming and doing her job is the thing that's making everything feel, or have felt, like it was very confusing. Let's just pull up the Triple Goddess here and see if she's got anything to add. The deck has anything to add to this. We have the Four of Wands, and that's interesting because we have the Four of Wands here, but we also have it depicted here, obviously, in the reverse. Now, I feel like it's not that you've been oblivious, Capricorn. This is the problem. Like, I don't think that whatever it is that you've been dealing with came out of left field. I do feel very strongly that you sort of knew it was coming. And this Four of Wands in the upright here feels less like the creation of a new foundation and the preservation of a foundation for you that has some sort of connection to your emotional state. What do I mean by that? Well, I mean, it feels to me like it's something that your ego has needed to remain the way that it was for you to feel the same way that you always have about yourself, right? Comfort zone kind of energies. And the harder you've tried to sort of cling to the comfort zone, and I'm not talking about your work situation, I'm not talking about your material situation, I want to be very clear about that. This is all very firmly rooted in the emotional for you, which is often a place that is problematic for Capricorns, right? Because it's inconvenient and it's messy and it's not logical, it doesn't make any sense, and we can't system our way out of it, right? I say this as a Capricorn ascendant myself. It's like the harder you've tried to hold on to the kind of foundation that your ego needed and your awareness of self needed to feel safe and to feel secure. It's like the more confusing things have got and the more brutal the loss of it has felt. That really does feel very strong. Now, interestingly enough, at the bottom of the deck here, we have the Two of Wands. And this is important because you are at a crossroads. We can actually see it here between these two sets of cards. And I think the first most important thing to recognise is the fact that you are at a crossroads. Not that everything has been lost and everything's fucked and everything's ruined and I'm so sad, or any of those things. Not that I think Capricorn particularly would fall down that route, but at the same time, you must be very... I won't be going around telling people that they must do anything. That's shocking. I'm going to retract that sentence immediately. It would behoove you to be aware of escapist or numbing behaviours. Let's put it like that, right? There's Saturn is in Pisces, and one of the side effects from that can be bringing one's dream to reality and whatnot, but it can also be, fuck me, reality's a little bit too hard, I'm going to escape into drink, drugs, unwise sex, all manner of whatever coping mechanism that you personally have developed, as we all have unhealthy, maladaptive, responses to things sometimes. Like, being aware of that is half of the battle. So, knowing then that what has broken down and what has been lost is what is propelling you to the crossroads where you get to make a conscious decision about where you move next based on what you have and what you do not anymore have and what you would like more of in the future, right? There's a real turning point here for you, Capricorn. And I do think that it is... it's actually foreshadowing the quality of the rest of your life, which sounds quite big and heavy and dramatic, and I didn't really quite mean it to sound as big and heavy and dramatic as that, but here we are. If you can take where you are right now is the Five of Pentacles, feeling isolated, feeling alone, quite likely abandoning yourself in terms of what it is that you actually need to be well moving forwards. Certainly probably not eating properly and not exercising any kind of self-care whatsoever. If in that state you can recognize that you have been plopped at a crossroads so that you can reclaim for yourself some sovereignty, some authority, some autonomy about the direction of travel, taking into account whatever life lessons the universe has thrown at you in the last 6 months. And you can change your perspective. And we're changing the perspective from this here to something much better over here. Then I think the more likely it is that you are going to be able to navigate through this incurring the least damage. You are uncomfortable, no shadow of a doubt at all, and exactly as would be expected with what is happening here. But at the same time, there is a flame that is being ignited of the possibility of something different, and recognizing that where you are is in a place that will allow you to unpick. I just noticed that we've got the Five of Swords underneath there. Unpick any self-sabotaging behaviors, unpick any thought patterns and thought processes that do not serve you. To clear the decks, ready for you to go out there into the world a little cleaner, a little happier, a little more able to what is that? There's something here that's kind of shifting around, and I'm trying to feel around the edges of it to see what it is exactly. I mean, self-sabotage is huge, definitely questions of that here, but there are a lot of things that are strapped up very fucking tightly, and I feel like there's such a fear of letting go of some of those, or just letting some of the tension of those things that are strapped up go, for fear of being absolutely completely consumed by them. Like, if you have childhood trauma, then there's a likelihood that there are aspects of that have not been fully explored and released. And I'm not saying that you need to sit in the shit things that have happened to you, but you have to recognize that shit things that have happened to you, whilst they might have been character building in some sort of way, they're trapped in your body, they're trapped in your psyche, and they're trapped in your emotions. Bringing them up and embracing that part of you that is trying to hold shit back. Just bringing it in and saying, I am actually stronger when all of these things are here, rather than when I am repressing things or trying to keep myself separated, or parts of myself separated from the others, because I'm focused on trying to achieve or not. Like, all of this is coming down to this idea that actually, Capricorn, you are valid as a human being simply because you exist. And I have lost count of the Capricorns that I know that don't understand that simple fact about themselves. Almost right across the board, if you have Capricorn placements, then there is an undue weight that is placed on your achievements. Right? You become valuable purely only for what you do, what you achieve, the amount of power that you exercise over anything, work situations, whatever, and it's come to the point where it is suffocating you. It's come to the point where now it is time to let some of that tension go, right? Let the rope slacken off a little bit and investigate what it is that is keeping you back. Because the universe seems to me like it's trying to tell you that you need to start going in a different direction. And it's not what you do for work. It's not how you spend your downtime or anything like that. It's the mindset and the attitude and the self-worth that goes with that. We're not chasing external validation anymore. Like, for any of you who are watching this, who are Capricorn risings, all of that big movement in Taurus, which was the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, and then we had just shitload of planets all piling there. The sun's there. What else is there? Venus is there. Is there something else there? Possibly. That's all lighting up your fifth house, which is the house of fun and recreation and sex and sensuality and enjoyment of things. Children. It's a house of children. It's a house that's ruled traditionally by Leo. But if you're a Capricorn ascendant, then Taurus is ruling your fifth house. The last thing that's probably on your mind at the moment is, what can I do for fun and recreation? Right? If there is any fun and recreation showing up, it's probably manifesting itself as escapist behaviours. But this is where the big movements are trying to happen. And I think that the universe is trying to align you more to play. And like I said, it's probably the last thing that you could think of right now, but there's a restructuring of you that's going on here, right? There's a changing of your perspective in all sorts of things, because we've got the Hanged Man there, but we've also got the Justice card showing up sideways, and we've got the Four of Wands there. Now that's a breakdown of something that has been, structurally foundational for you. We saw it here, but it felt like it was something that you were clinging to. It's something potentially even that you were hiding behind. Here, for some of you, there might be the realization that home and the Four of Wands and those good things that we talk about haven't really ever meant that to you. It's been something that you've hidden behind as something to feel safe within without really truly appreciating it and drawing from it in a healthy way. That's possible. But either way, you know, I mentioned before that the fives represent an instability. Well, a 4 reversed quite often will do exactly the same. And so we've got it being repeated card after card after card, and corresponding confusion that goes with it. This Justice card, somebody beeping at the gate, this Justice card on its side here, representative of the sign of Libra. So we've got Libra and Pisces showing up as quite important so far. If you have those signs in your chart or surrounded by people with those signs, then all's the good. If not, don't worry about it, because we're looking at this from a purely energetic perspective. The Justice card for me represents consequences and the karma. Now, the fact that it's on its side, I often take to mean that it's not committed to one way or another, or that it's on the turn. And I wonder if what's on the turn here is your idea of fairness and how fairly you've been treated or not been treated. Like, for some of you, and I'm sorry I see this, so I'm going to have to say it, for some of you, you have treated other people very unfairly. And it's starting to dawn on you the possibility that that may have happened. But at the same time, and this is important, it's an understanding of how you have got to the point where that is something that you did. Whether or not it comes from childhood trauma, it's certainly come from life experiences. It feels like you're starting to realize how unsafe you have felt your entire life. And so if you have behaved in a way that's less than unfair to other people, you're starting to get a sense of how your fears have been being the thing that's made you, I don't know, thrash out at people or try desperately to cling to things that were trying to evolve and move and flow away from you so that they could be replaced with things that were more for you, that served you better. Now, if you know in your heart of hearts that you have absolutely done your best and you have not treated anyone unfairly, and to be honest, I'd be very surprised if there were many people around who could truly say that with, you know, real honesty, because we all fuck up sometimes, you know. Then this turning Justice card feels like it's more about starting to to change the way that you think so that it can take account of the fact that you actually deserve nice things too. I'm not talking about a shiny car. I'm not talking about a nice house and money and all that kind of thing. I'm talking about intimacy. I'm talking about care. I'm talking about not self-flagellating to fuck on a daily basis, but just allowing yourself to be. You know, lots of things feel to me like they're crumbling around you at the moment, and it's probably been emotionally exhausting on a level that you probably would never ever admit to anyone, right? And the Capricorn way is to just cope, right? We just cope, we just get on. My Two of Pentacles card is my card of coping, and that is a Capricorn card. It says a lot. It's like, no, you know, that Saturn influence is always, we just got to keep going, keep one foot in front of the other always. We don't stop, we don't tend our wounds, we don't cry about it, we just fucking get on with what needs to be done. And that's an approach that can take you quite a long way. But when the emotional stuff that you've repressed gets to a point that it cannot stay squashed down anymore because it's taking more effort than you've got available to keep it where it is, at some point the dam is going to break. And the dam, it seems to me, has broken. So now it's about recognizing where we are and where we move from here. Because the Ace of Wands is the potential for things to change. You to change, your circumstances to change, your experiences to change. We talk about the Ace of Wands in terms of it being a seed, and that's very important because it's the pure potentiality of the Suit of Wands. All experiences are possible when the Ace of Wands appears. Actually, the Ace of Wands never really disappears, but that's a discussion for a different day. There are points at which we become more aware that that potential is available and can be, we can plumb the depths of it for something. But it's about, for me, a change in behaviours. It's about a rebirth. We've actually got a full-on phoenix going on here. There is a rebirth moment here that is open for you in May. Now, this could come, I would be surprised, but it could come by way of a new job offer or an opportunity to go live somewhere, far away from where you are right now. It could be suddenly, well, I fucking lost everything, so I might as well start that business. I wouldn't be surprised to see some of you having lost your jobs recently, right? And that being possibly a thing. And being like, right, okay, well, now I'm going to do this because I'm not doing anything else and I need to be doing something. But for more of you, I feel like it's a much more overarching energy of, I am ready to change my fucking life now. I'm sick of feeling the way that I have. I'm sick of being confused. I'm sick of being in pain. It's okay when everything's going well, but, increasingly shit doesn't go well. Like, we're seeing that right across the board. And, stuff out there in the world is only getting harder. The rebirth seems to be an emotional one. But I'm not sure that it is necessarily true that you are going to see immediate results of that. I mean, there is an immediacy to the Ace of Wands, but we have the Magician in the sideways presentation, and we also have the Nine of Swords showing up sideways too. And it's, if the Magician was upright, then there'd be a little bit more immediate energy to this. But I think it all hinges between here, right? First, you have to accept that you're at a crossroads, and this crossroads is a good thing for you. You needed to be here. The extent to which you may be dealing with what you have lost over here and how much that's tempering what you feel you can do in the moment is a question for all of you. But without recognizing that you're at a crossroads, and thus being at a crossroads, there is a great deal of energy available to you for you to change things in a way that feels like it holds the keys to the new, right? It's not going to be immediate, but you don't need things to be immediate because you're a Capricorn. The problem is that the Magician is not in the upright. He's getting there, but he's not quite there yet. So it's a case of, what do you actually want to manifest for yourself? I'm pretty sure I talked in the 3-month overviews about a changing of core values for Capricorn. I can't swear to it, but I'm almost certain that was one of the things that came up. And correspondingly, a kind of perspective on life and a mindset shift that had come along where the things that you value are different. If you chased security, stability, status, wealth, all of these sorts of things, feeling like they were the things that were going to fill you emotionally, only to get there and find that everything was a fucking lie and nothing felt good, even though you had those things, right? You might have a nice car, you might have a nice house, but there was still that kind of emptiness or that pain inside. If you sat down and wrote your intentions out, they probably wouldn't be, I want to work an extra 10 hours a week and get that promotion a year sooner. I want a, 20 grand pay bump. I want a shinier version of the car that I've got now. It would be something a little bit more fundamental. It would be something that feels much more emotionally meaningful to you than you would have considered possible only a year ago. But you don't know what that is yet, quite. And this is where patience is necessary, because I do feel like you are in a state of transition. And when you're in a state of transition, not all of the answers are going to appear at once in front of you. I mean, we had a solar eclipse in the sign of Aries back in March. Was it March, beginning of April? Like one of those. Which is usually a great big go sign for everyone, because Aries absolutely doesn't want to stand still. It wants to initiate, it wants to do things. But we also had Mercury retrograde in Aries, and that kind of put the mockers on everything. We had to think about things a little bit more. Now, the reason that I brought it up is because the window of influence for the solar eclipse is at least 6 months, if not a year. In some cases, up to 18 months. There are seeds being planted here all over, but there are things that need to be closed out before we can do this. Unfortunately, things don't have nice, neat endings and nice, neat beginnings, so quite often they blend and they cross over, and everything feels much more complicated than it should do while we're trying to navigate the two. So not really knowing what it is that you want to manifest means that it's difficult for you to be able to start that process yet. And we've got the Nine of Swords there. Now that also is not in the upright, and that's a good thing, because if it was in the upright, I feel like you'd just completely lost your perspective altogether. What I do feel like is that these two cards are working in tandem. These two energies are working in tandem. Maybe you struggle with anxiety, maybe you struggle with overthinking, right? Maybe you have made shit so complex for yourself that it is unsustainable to try and continue any further. I mean, some of you might actually have been circling the drain on burnout for quite a long time, Capricorn, and just been completely unaware. Just being like, what the fuck is wrong with me? Why can't I get this done? It's burnout. Right? You are exhausted from having to try and keep too many plates up in the air. And these two cards moving in tandem is really important, because as you start to decomplexify, is that even a word? I might have just made that up. Your mind, your thinking, your worldview, your core values. So it is, you only get a clearer and clearer view of where your power lies and what it is that you want to actually affect for yourself right now. Like I said, there's an awful lot of your effort that's gone into pushing down the emotional stuff. And it's here now. It's popped up. And we don't know what to do with it, but it's definitely not going back in the box under the bed. Better to deal with whatever it's bringing up, even if it's uncomfortable, because you can't have this without this, without working out what this is. And this card here, it's a card ultimately of perspective. That's it. It's the one card in the tarot where the swords do not follow my arbitrary rule of swords up, good, swords down, bad. I mean, it's arbitrary. It's not right across all decks. But there's a reason for that. There's always a reason why something's been placed the way that it is. Those swords there are weapons of, cruelty and abuse and death or whatever, or they're tools. And it's the mindset that perceives them that decides what they are. Now, they are neither up nor bad. There's a neutrality to these swords here. There's a neutrality to the act of looking at what it is that is ailing you mentally and emotionally, because you are strong enough to withstand whatever it is that your ego is actually telling you that you're not. This is a period of time, Capricorn, where I think it's really important that you take some time for yourself. Not planning, not strategizing, not really doing anything other than being with yourself. Like, take yourself out for a walk, go and see the trees, smell the flowers, touch grass, do something. Do something to put yourself into your body. Because I think a lot of Capricorns have been living up here for a very long time. And this is where the complexity is coming in. This is where everything feels so hard. It feels to me like where it is that you're being rigid. And there's a flow that's coming here, but you have to allow it to flow. instead of being bound up as it is. I mean, this is really interesting, but it does, and you know, some of you might benefit from going to therapy or things like that, but I rather do think that that isn't necessarily right for everyone. I mean, the biggest thing here seems to be you being with you with no fucking distractions, Capricorn. You know, if you're the kind of person who needs to whip the phone out every 30 seconds if there's a 10-second lull in the conversation, then that's something that you need to work with. You know, if you if there is anything that you use as a distraction, I would be kind of trying to pull yourself away from it, to give yourself just the mental space for, or emotional space really, for those things that have been repressed to just start popping up to the surface. Like, this is a really good time for something like going for a run or doing some yoga, or something where you don't have to think about stuff, you just feel. Right? You feel your body and you let yourself drift. I think there are all sorts of answers that are coming to the surface for you this month, Capricorn, and each one of the things that pops up as a way in which you may have made things difficult for yourself, right? Just in terms of your own head, I'm not talking about, you know, other people, is a sword that's taken off the wall and moved out of the way. Right? It's taking you closer and closer to accessing the magician, which is closer and closer to working out what it is that you actually want, and being able to pick up all of your energy and say, I'm going in this direction now, right? Because this is in alignment with me and what I want, rather than, you know, chasing a fantasy, chasing it really, really well and hoping that it would lead to emotional fulfillment at the end of it, and then being bitterly disappointed to find out that it's an empty box. It doesn't contain anything. You know, this is really interesting. Right, I've been prattling on for ages, so I'm going to go now. I'm going to go do the extended. So if you'd like to join me, you're very welcome to do so. Links to do that are in the description box. If not, no shade, not to worry. But do be aware that you are not being punished here, Capricorn. Right, this is not a punishment situation. This is you are actually being gifted the opportunity to really fundamentally change everything about your experience. I said this right at the beginning. It felt like the stuff that was being seeded here is, you know, for good or for ill, it's foreshadowing the quality of your life from here on out. It's a little bit dramatic, but so, you know. Oh fuck, I just had some of you know I'm absolutely obsessed with Twin Peaks. I really, really love it, and David Lynch actually was in the third series as an FBI dude, and there's a quote from there. I can just hear him saying it in his voice, is "Fix your hearts or die," which is a little bit dramatic, but seemingly in the tone of what I'm talking about today. It's not quite that bad, but it's kind of fix your hearts or have everything remain the same. I'm not sure if you get an opportunity as profound as this one to change things so significantly moving forwards. Well, you do, because it's always there, but all of the doors are open for you to make some significant changes here. They'll be open in the future, but they'll take a lot more work. That's really interesting. Right, I'm going to go. I'm going to stop prattling on. Know that I love you all very, very much, and I'll see you soon.